Hello and welcome to AZAAZ. That's Ask Zenatta Anything About Zoho. This is Volume 1, Issue number 24. This is the show where you have questions about, well, Zoho, consequently the title of the show, and we have answers, and we have an all-star team. I've got Greg Belknap. I've got Tyler Colt. I've got Landon McCluskey. We are all from Zenatta Consulting, and we are all here to answer your questions. And with that, first question goes to Tyler. Tyler, take it away.
Alrighty, yeah. First question here is from Nick over on the Q&A for AZAAZ over on Club Zenatta. So Nick's question is, we have a customer who dropped off a serialized item that they own that we are performing repairs on. We then sent it to our technician at another location to perform the repair. I need to be able to track that the customer dropped the item off to me. I received the item, transferred it to the technician, and repairs are being done, and then collect payment when the repairs are finished, and then track that the item is returned to the customer. Since it's not in our inventory, I don't think adding it as an item and performing transfer orders in inventory would be the correct approach to track its movement. Any ideas on how to handle this scenario? So good question, Nick. And people ask us about kind of serialized inventory and servicing and the follow-on workflows all the time. Well, almost always the best option is to track this in CRM. You can very easily create a module for this type of serialized inventory. And you might even want to carve it out of serialized inventory that you sell, right? If you're just doing repairs on something for them. I'm thinking in a previous life, I worked with an electric bike company. And yeah, of course, we would fix the bikes that we sell. But if someone brought in a bike that we didn't sell them and they wanted service, we'll surely fix it, right? I mean, service is where a business like that makes a lot of their money. So I would say CRM module to track this. You can move that through various stages and statuses associated with technicians or current locations. And then from there, you could have the system automatically invoice via books for the services that are being provided, separately from, the item itself, just because it's not really what's being sold. So yeah, your instinct is right. This really isn't a use case where you'd park this in inventory and do transfer orders. I would just say CRM workflow or, maybe Creator, but it's overkill. You don't need to do it there. CRM is going to work just fine.
Suppose if you wanted to, you could try to do this with a custom books module too.
Yeah. Do custom module books.
Yeah. That could track the, you just have something for, because then you could have lookups to like a particular, invoice and things like that on jobs. It just kind of depends on, just what kind of additional features, because there's not quite as many like workflows or automations built around custom modules. Just depends on, I would say, how automated is your process. It's easier to build automations in CRM. But there is something nice about just keeping everything in one app.
Alrighty, the next question comes from Planet Elohim after watching our YouTube video, Zoho Mail Full Product Tutorial. And they ask, we currently have 2 Zoho Mail Basic accounts and would like to upgrade to the 50 gig. However, we are having trouble understanding how to do it. Could you please help me? So this is actually not as simple as it may seem. You've got some options here. If you are on Zoho One, or if you're on a plan that includes mail, if you're on Workspace or Workplace or any of those, you're going to have to go in and just buy the upgrade. But if you're literally just on Zoho Mail itself, then that means you're on the Mail Lite plan, which is, I think, what you're meaning by this basic plan. You're on Mail Lite. And in that case, you're really just going to want to click in the application. You click on the little silhouette of your head or whatever icon you have in the upper right-hand corner, and you click on Manage My Plans, and in there, you're basically going to be able to upgrade to the Mail Premium plan, which is going to take you from $1 a month to $4 a month. That's going to give you your 50 gigs. Because right now you have a choice on the Lite plan of, I think it's 5 or 10 gigs per user. And when you go to the Premium plan, you can go to 50 gigs per user. You also get 1 gig attachments at that point in time. You also might want to look into Workplace at that point in time, because that's starts at $3 per user per month, and you still get the 50 gigs, and you get all kinds of other things around that. Zoho, oftentimes looking at a bundle will take you, you're like, wow, the bundle's so much cheaper than everything else. And I mean, that's the case of Zoho One. If you're on all employee pricing, the enterprise version of Zoho, which is in Zoho One, is more expensive by itself than it is with Zoho One with all the other 40 apps. So you really kind of want to look around at that. So that would be it. And, you know, Tyler, you're always saying in a previous life, I worked in an electric bike shop. That I might really date myself because, like, in a previous life, I was a blacksmith. You know, it's you know, electric bike shop. I don't know. That's that.
Yeah, I do blacksmithing as a hobby, so it's not that far back. You're good. All right, and after watching our YouTube video, How to Set Up a Calendar Booking Inside Zoho CRM 2021 tutorial, Dr. Kaya says, how do you set availability for a meeting with a CRM user or CRM group so the full date isn't open for bookings, but just the hours you want open? So this one is pretty simple in a couple of different places. So if you're using CRM directly, you have to have things specifically on a CRM calendar for it to even be considered in, against availability if you're creating a booking within CRM. However, if you're using bookings, there you can set under your staff tab and the individual staff, you can set the working hours, which will be the availability will be checked against. And then when you set a one-on-one booking, every time that link is used, they select their staff. It checks against their availability. So as far as a specific CRM team, there's really not a good way to do that. There's a crazy workaround that may or may not work with resource booking in bookings, but that's really far down the rabbit hole, and I would not recommend it anyway. So
saw this question come in, Landon. This is like from a video I think I made like years ago. I mean, it's just like, you know, on the old CRM booking link, which is something that's just been sitting in there and they've never done anything with. I mean, it's kind of nice if you live in the CRM and you use just the CRM calendar, right? You can use that booking link. And in many ways, it actually puts it on people's calendar. It does things better than bookings in a lot of ways. So bookings, but you know, Zoho still, it doesn't seem to have solved for this. Hey, I've got two people and I need to check multiple calendars, and I want to, that they haven't solved for it here or in bookings, have they?
No, the only way is to do like a massive workaround with creating a resource for a team and then creating a service for that and whatever, but you can't control the length of time they book for, and it's way out there. So
sorry, Kaya. So what's the answer, guys? Calendly, Acuity scheduling?
I think so.
It's pretty, in short.
Just
in short,
another better app.
All right, and then moving on here, we've got a question from Jean Barrow after watching our YouTube video on Shopify and its integration with Zoho Inventory. She asked a question that has nothing to do with that video whatsoever, which is, what is the best community to learn and share experiences about Zoho One? Well, of course, we're going to say you can go to Club Zenatta. That's club.zenatta.com. That's our online community. It's a healthy, great community. A lot of people there talking about Zoho, answering questions. Zoho does have its own community, very good as well, community.zoho.com. You can go there and, you've got a lot of questions being answered. And a lot of answers being given there as well. So those are kind of your two. I think those are the only two communities, guys, in the world of Zoho that I know of. I don't know if anyone else has spun up a community such as we have, but that's kind of the place to go. Also, a Zoho user group. You know, if you go to community.zoho.com, if you want to actually personal touch, meeting with people, discussing your problems, going out to lunch, having a cocktail, those kind of things, go to a ZUG. That's a Zoho user group. And if you go to, again, community.zoho.com, you can find a Zoho user group near you. You might even meet your future spouse. You never know. That's the advantage of a Zoho.
Who knows?
You know.
And even if you can't go to any of the physical in-person meetups, there are a couple of really good invite-only Zoho Click channels that you can kind of register for either a Zoho users group or a Zoho developers group if you're a developer coding in Zoho as well. Lots of spaces to build up and support one another.
In Southern
Or-
California, I'm
or
going to be
who knows?
I'm going to be spinning up right here in Southern California Yozug, which is a yoga Zoho users group, and we're basically going to, downward dog, and then we'll answer a Zoho question, right? Like, hey, what's your favorite use of a formula in CRM? Oh, then we'll go to Warrior One, and we'll answer another question. Yozug, it's coming to a city near you, but it's going to start. It's going to start right here. It's going to be big.
The real question is, are you going to have Goat Yozug?
Go Yozug.
Oh my gosh, so many acronyms.
Well,
Or
go
not even,
on.
that's not even an acronym. It's like a clumsiest portmanteau. Anyway, our next question comes from Club Zenatta from John Frick. We are currently on Creator V5 and have the option to upgrade to V6. One of the main goals with Creator is to create a customer portal for our agencies. It seems as though everywhere I read, people are pointing to Z portals. However, we would like to grasp the full capacity of Creator prior to going down that route. Do you know the difference between V5 and V6 of Creator? And would you recommend staying with 5 or upgrading to 6? So kind of big questions here. First off, so it looks like in your question about whether or not to look at Z portals or stick with Creator, the difference there is how much of the work do you want to do in setting it up? Because Z portals is an excellent, pre-built portal system that will connect to your CRM really well. It's got some great features, but obviously they do have some limitations in customization. Whereas in Creator, you can make it whatever you want, and you can have full control over how the portal is set up, who can see what, setting up different kinds of profiles, that sort of thing. But the caveat is that you have to build it all yourself or hire a consulting team like Zenatta to build it for you from the ground up. So that's that question. Then the other question is whether to use V5 or V6. I would say that if you haven't really, because it sounds like you haven't built a whole lot of stuff in Creator yet. Like one of your goals is to create a portal. So you haven't yet. I would say go ahead and upgrade to V6 as the Creator team is adding a lot of new features and field types and things like that. Those are going to be primarily only usable in V6. So you're going to want to use that. You would only want to stay on V5 if you've already built, let's say you've spent 500 to 600 hours building an internal task management and record and hour tracking tool for your, consulting company, just as a hypothetical. Then if you built all of that in V5, I could understand the hesitancy to want to just click a button to say, yeah, just move all of this all at once. But yeah, if you haven't
Greg,
really...
is there no way to sandbox that, to make a copy and say, let me see what it does, and on that migration?
You'd have to copy the app to a different Creator account. Because when you move, I was thinking the same thing. Honestly, could I copy, for example, our app and then move it to C6 just to see what breaks? But you'd have to copy it to a different Zoho account completely.
Show my ignorance here. What does Zoho do? So, is V4 gone, or are there still V4 apps out there? Because
all the way gone.
5 years ago, this same thing happened, man. They were moving everybody from 4 to 5, and they were screaming, yelling, and wailing, and gnashing of teeth, and everyone was upset. And it was like, oh my gosh, I don't want to move. I don't want to move. But is it gone? I mean, can you still have an old app and it won't break? Or do you always have to make that upgrade and see what it's going to do? And,
eventually you have to.
Yeah.
Eventually. I don't know if some of the V4 stuff still works. When I first started in the world of Zoho, it was already V5. V4 is before my time. So
Well, I was back when I was a blacksmith, you know, in another life here. By the way, Landon, I don't know if you're in or not, but goyozug.com is available, dude. We can get that. We can start a Goat Yoga Zoho user group company.
Oh my gosh, that's so cheap.
Do I make it ours?
nobody's
I wonder
nobody's
why
hopped
it would
on
be
that
so
one.
cheap. Why would
You
that
better do
domain
before
be
this-
so cheap?
before
for
this
my
video.
head?
Yeah, have you double checked like
nobody
Urban,
has jumped on that yet.
have you double checked Urban Dictionary that like goyozug isn't like a slur for something that you don't know about? I'm just saying, there, some red flags up there.
We can get that, man.
Next question also comes from Club Z. This question is actually going to be a little bit more of a PSA than a question, but this comes from Eric Trobach, who says, "Hi, I've been using Zoho Books API for the last 7 years. I've never run into any throttling or limits per minute. Then on July 2nd, we were hit with throttles. Zoho told me the limit was 100 calls per minute. So I adjusted my code that was making API calls so it'd be well below the 100 per minute. Then I hit another throttle at the end of July, and they notified me that the limit was now 30 calls per minute. Is anyone else experiencing this? Seems to me that now the API is only useful for API calls such as creating a record. You can't query the API for anything more than a record or two. Additionally, if you have a scheduled function running in CRM or Books, it's not going to be able to do much with those limits, and schedule's only running every 30 minutes. Seems to me the next best option would be to have cron jobs running on a separate platform such as Google Cloud, Zoho Catalyst, etc. if you do any large querying or retrieving or mass updating of data via the API." So I went down a little bit of a rabbit hole and had a bit of a conspiracy theory tracking of I didn't actually physically have one, but I could have very easily made one of those cork boards with the red string of following these threads of these API call limit changes. And Eric is completely correct that it seems that the API limits have changed, just within the last couple of months. Looking at the Zoho Books API documentation, previous to July 25th, there was no indication of how many API calls per minute you could have in Zoho Books. Then, at least sometime between July 25th and July 27th of this year, now there is a little message on the bottom of the API limits section of the documentation saying that the limit is in fact 30 API requests per minute, and that's as far as I can tell across the board. So it's not, oh, you can make 30 calls to creating a record and then 30 calls to getting a record within a minute. That it's any and all API calls coming from a singular user or authorization, as it were. So first off, yes, Eric, you're not crazy. This has been happening to other people. It's not just you. In fact, we reached out to the Zoho Partner Connect to kind of try to get some more clarification on this. We're still kind of waiting on some answers for them, but obviously the most important thing right now is, well, what should be some solutions going forward? And like you said, trying to run schedules out of, say, the CRM or Books, you're really limited by how often those can run. And suggested using crons with something like Zoho Catalyst. And that certainly is an option. There's a little bit of a high floor, or it's a very steep learning curve on figuring out how to do that. But for those that perhaps are a little lighter on the technical side, something that we've done before where we've run into API limit issues with other apps is using Zoho Flow, because in Zoho Flow, right, you can add in like a delay to wait, and you can specify, I'm just going to wait 15 seconds, or I want to wait 30 seconds, or 2 minutes, whatever, right? And then if you set up that schedule, or if you set up that Zoho Flow, instead of using Zoho Flow's schedule option for triggering it, if you have it as like an open webhook, then you can actually, at the end of that flow, you can run a function to do an invoke URL to then just call that same flow again. And essentially you've now set up a sort of constantly running loop. And so if you put a little delay function inside of that, then you can effectively create a continuously running function that would run, once every 30 seconds or whatever. Now, of course, that means that you do need to keep a close watch on your Zoho Flow credits and making sure that you have enough there to get you through. But yeah, it is a ever pressing question for all of us developers here at Zenatta.
Blows my mind, because I know for a fact from setting up pretty large installs of books and inventory that the limit's always been 100 per minute. And, it's a reasonable argument there that even 100 per minute is too low, especially given some of the architectural decisions that are there on the back end of Zoho books. Like you can't bulk get basically anything or bulk put basically anything. So yeah, this one grinds my gears. 30 is just not even close to enough. I mean, Greg posted in Partner Connect like an internal space for a lot of different partners to communicate with Zoho, highlighting this. And another partner called out a use case that this breaks. So any invoice that has 30 or more items, if you needed to do anything functionally with that invoice based on the items, you can't. Because to get the full item information, you have to make one API call per line item. So in his case, he was working with a customer that has pretty regularly 30 plus items on an invoice, and this just broke everything. Now, another solution where you can get around some of the limitations in the APIs by using analytics, right? So like probably need to get in the habit of, if you're going to be in an invoice line item and you need the full item data, get it from Zoho Analytics, right? Things like that to kind of work around some of these limitations. But yeah, 30 is just way
too
low.
That's something that needs to be called out here. I mean, the total problem, there are a lot of really bad words I could use here, but the problem that Zoho has and what they continue to do is they set themselves up as an enterprise-ready company, right? And when they do things like this, they break it. They're not enterprise-ready. And the big issue is, especially when they make these changes, because to me, 100 is too little. It could be 1,000. I don't know. It's kind of crazy because you could, on an enterprise level, that's not, we've lost clients because of these things. But here's the other thing. They make these changes. You have something out there based on the old. You don't let anybody know what's happening. It breaks a mission critical function in the company, costing companies thousands and tens of thousands of dollars, hundreds of thousands sometimes, before they even figure out what the heck has gone on, because it just breaks something at the beginning that was part of a massive thing down the road. So there's a lot of things that, if you're listening, you have to address here. It's not only this, but you can't turn things off when limits are hit. You've got to give a 24, 48-hour grace period. Let them run, let them go over, right? Unless you can tell there's something like it's a crazy loop that's gone on, but they know that. You can see what's happening there. You can set some limits, but you've got to be able to give people warning to buy more credits to be able to do it. And the other thing is this even one of those things, Greg, have you determined where you can buy more API calls? You could increase them to...
No,
this is a hard...
per minute. Yeah.
Everybody has this rule.
The per minute limits are hard limits. Right. And, what they need to do is they actually solved this in CRM. I was ignorant of this for a while, but they actually solved this in CRM. It's based on concurrency limits now. So when you effectively in CRM don't have a per minute limit, like I'm sure if you just hammered it intensively with 1 million calls in a second, you're going to break something, right? But essentially done via concurrency, where if you are overloading it, it just queues things, is my understanding now. So the worst thing you're going to see from a limit perspective in CRM is just a delay, but not a break, right? And that just, it seems like that needs to get implemented on any tool that's supposed to be used by an enterprise, right? Because like Brett's mentioning, I mean, you know, it's conceivable for a large organization that an outage in the API where things aren't kicking off, like the next task, the next invoice, that can cost them upwards of thousands of dollars per hour. If you've got 200-300 people working in that account, like that's not a reach, right? To come up with a number like that. So yeah, it's brutal. These things, you know, ideally I'd like to see these numbers go up, not go down, right? I feel like a lot of these are lower than industry standards, and we should be moving the other direction, not
well,
worse.
and you know, the hope is, and you know, I want to give the Zoho team the benefit of the doubt that their goal is to create better APIs that you don't have to use as many API calls for things. Like in CRM, they have instituted, it was, I think it was with V4, composite API calls, right? Where you could essentially instead of sending an API call to create a contact and then another API call to then get that contact, so then you could link it to a deal that you're going to make, and all this stuff. Instead of doing that, you essentially create like a map that says like, I want to do this, and then I want to do, you know, I want to create a contact, then I want to create a deal, then I want to get that contact's information, and then I want to put it in that deal. And then you package that and you send that as one API call, and then Zoho runs each of those commands on, you know, for you. So, and then in the case of querying, again, CRM making great strides with the COQL, the CRM object query language that lets you get, you know, 2,000 records per call, and you have very extensive filtering capabilities. You know, it's a pared down version of GraphQL
and multi-module request.
Yeah, and multi-module. You can look. Yeah, you can I can be pulling from a deals module, but then also in the single request, also getting values from related accounts or contact fields.
Functionality that can effectively cut the necessary APIs in half. Like, let's say you needed to get 200 deals, and for every deal you need to have this certain field that's only on the account. Without COQL, like basically if you have to do it the Zoho Books way, you need to make 400 API calls. If you're doing it the CRM way, you're making one, because you're doing a bulk COQL multi-module get.
A bulk COQL.
Yeah, that's hard to say.
The thing is, these are all more efficient, right?
That's hard to say.
In many ways, guys, these are a better way to do it. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. The way that CRM is allowing you to do it is more efficient for Zoho. Like, it costs them less money to service that request, and it's easier for us because we don't have to get a bunch of records and then loop on all of them and one by one get more data and put it all together. Like, it's very inefficient to write the code that way, but you have to in Books, unless you're going to reference like analytics or other applications that store the data.
I think the question to wrap this up that I get asked all the time is why? Why Zoho? Why? And honestly, I think it just goes back to COVID, if you really want to know. Prior to COVID, 2019, Zoho announced they were building 10 or 12 new data centers. They did not build those during COVID. And I don't know if they've even got them spun up yet. But they actually really increased their size. They added so many users during COVID because they were one of the best remote working tools out there. And Zoho, unlike everybody else, runs everything on their own data centers, period. There is nothing on AWS. There is nothing on Azure. There's nothing on, Google Cloud. It just sits on their own data centers 100%. And so they truly have to manage the bandwidth, and they have to manage the compute, and they have to manage all of those things on their data centers. And until they build more, I think we're going to be seeing this kind of thing happen all the time. That's a theory. I think it's probably a pretty good one, but I don't know. Anyway, all right, Eric, that was a hell of an answer, huh, guys?
Let's end on a palate cleanser.
All righty. So last question here comes from Angela over on Club Zenatta. In the Q&A, the post title is Link Match Security. So Angela asks, Link Match sounds like a great tool, but I'm wondering if there are any security concerns with it being a tool outside of the Zoho universe. I'm also wondering if there are any issues with violations of LinkedIn's policy. So I'll kind of answer this in two steps. So security concerns with it being a tool outside of the Zoho universe, it's only going to have the permissions that you grant it via your individual user license. There is always a risk. I'll put the asterisks on it. Like, you are technically signing into LinkedIn via link match and giving them some amount of permissions to interact with the data that you are able to see in LinkedIn. That being said, I'm not expecting any real security issues in connecting those two apps. When it comes to violating LinkedIn's policy, I don't know, Angela, and it's a good question because I've thought about this before, right? Like, so I'm connected to Greg on LinkedIn. Greg signs up for LinkedIn with gregbelknap@gmail.com, right? Maybe he's not using a Zenatta like work account because he's had this for 10 years. I connect to him with link match, I click a button, and now I have his email in my CRM. Is that a violation of LinkedIn's policy? I guess not. You'd have to imagine they'd be shut down if you weren't allowed to do that by now. But nowhere on Greg's LinkedIn is he specifically presenting that personal email address for people to reach out. So I don't know. It's a good question. What I would say,
you don't get that. No, you don't get the email address unless you're connected.
Yeah. But even when I'm connected to Greg on LinkedIn, I can't go get his personal email address myself as a logged in user. I can't just go to his page and grab it.
Well, no, you can. You can only if it's available. So what you have to do is you have to go look at contact information. It's only if that email address is available. Because I use link match every day, right? Because but it's if it's available, you can't. It actually does sit there in plain sight.
Got it.
But link match is just doing what you could if you were logging in manually and copying and pasting.
If you're logged in and you're not connected, it gets you what you could see that way. If you're logged in and you are connected, you have to do some digging to see it, right? Because it doesn't really normally put your, personal phone number and your email address and all that stuff out there. But it is, if you make that public, it is available. But most of the time when we're doing it, we have their email anyway. So for me, it's kind of copy and paste. I know a lot of people use it for prospecting, and there is another one out there, right, Tyler?
Provided by LinkedIn, it's Sales Navigator. But they charge to get the CRM integration. You have to be on the team account. It's like $2-3 grand a month or something like that at minimum. So that turns a lot of people off from using it.
A lot of data.
Yeah,
right.
I have two things before we end. First of all, how dare you let Greg connect you on LinkedIn and not me? Whatever. Second of all, Brett, we're good to go. I bought Go Yozug, so we got it.
All right, yeah. I'll get to work on the logo, which I've got some thoughts about. Okay, most of them are not safe for work, but I think
this sounds like some kind of like off-brand Go-Gurt competitor.
It could be.
Hey,
at least now people watching the show, we don't have to worry about them taking it. I already got it. We're good to go.
It's nailed. We got it.
Yeah,
I'm excited to see where this goes, Landon.
Where this goes, Yozugs.
Tyler, Greg, you laugh at us now, but
I do. I do that pretty regularly.
Yeah.
We're literally taking baths in $100 bills. You're going to be jealous.
$100 bills and
not of the bills.
No. I don't want Ben Franklin crawling up my keister. Thank you very much.
Speak for your sister.
Discover a lot more than electricity. You know what I'm saying?
Let's wrap this before we get demonetized. It's coming. I feel it in my bones.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for watching AZAAZ. We really appreciate it. If you'd like to get in touch with us over here at Zenatta, you can just go to zenatta.com and click on Book a Meeting.
On the website is where you'll find complete episodes of our podcast, The CRM Zen Show, where we cover all the news in the world of Zoho every single week. If you want that news delivered to your inbox every Monday morning, be sure to subscribe to our newsletter.
And as we mentioned in a question earlier on the show, if you want to share your experiences with Zoho One, no better place to do it than Club Zenatta. Go to club.zenatta.com, where we do code shares, share not only the news we have on the CRM Zen show, but any other Zenatta events coming up, including webinars and more.
And if you want to make sure your team using Zoho is trained up really well, especially CRM projects and many more to come, go ahead and check out our training at zenatta.com/training. Get everybody trained up in less than a week.
Last but not least, please be sure to like and subscribe here on YouTube, as well as your choice of podcast app. We'll see you next Wednesday.
Go yo, Zuck. Go yo, Zuck.
Ugh.
Look at that bad boy.